I've worked on a couple of teams that were really, really big. It was probably the biggest organization I've worked with was a project out on campus at Microsoft that had 45 Scrum teams. And you could do type 2 with the embedded type 1s in that. But when you get to that size, or even bigger, there's another set of needs that comes up. It's not to say that they don't exist in smaller organizations, but they become more of a problem with these really enterprise-sized organizations. And that is that each of these products or each of these lines that they have need also to be concerned about enterprise agility. For example, maybe you've got even a large enterprise with IT development projects going on. You're going to have different stakeholders. You're going to have different customers or users or needs. And so the process to build these applications is rightly managed by specific people that work on that particular project. And so other than the visibility that other products exist and other teams exist, there's often very little overlap in from big project to big project or big team to big team within a large organization on the people or on the requirements. And so what is pretty easy to witness when you're working in that kind of a large enterprise environment is the same kind of component being built multiple times. And that's very wasteful. For instance, think about an organization that does IT development, that does a lot of reporting on company data, corporate data, sales data, website traffic, marketing data, that kind of stuff. Yet it needs to be secure. It needs to be, only trusted people have access to the data. And so they write a login system. They write an access system. And what happens a lot of times is these applications get built over and over and over again. The other one I see quite often is simple transaction processing, either database transaction processing or financial transaction processing, that isn't generified, is built specifically for the use today, which means that the next team that needs something is going to build their own again. And so what that does is it creates a large amount of redundancy within the enterprise solution set. And this isn't redundancy like in a spacecraft or an airplane. This is redundancy that makes it more difficult to maintain these systems, but it's also redundancy that means duplicate work, that you've built this thing 14 times, or that's an exaggeration, 5 times, 3 times. More than once is too many. So the art and science of enterprise portfolio management grows out of this need. So a number of years ago, I went to a Scrum gathering in Minneapolis. And Ken Schwaber was talking about scaling Scrum. And the body of his talk was rather boring. Wasn't a lot new. But he called on a gentleman to come up and talk about a solution that he had implemented with his company. And this was the first time I met Colin Bird from the UK. Colin Bird is the leader of Ripple Rock in the UK. Actually, they've become one of the leading providers of training and consulting work worldwide, especially in Europe. And so this is what he described. So here's, I mean, you probably would have more products than 3, but that's what easily fits on my slide. So you've got multiple products. Each of the products has their own product owner. Each product has their own product backlog. And each product is allocated a specific set or number of Scrum teams to work on their product backlog. You know, again, for simplicity's sake on my slide, each product has 2 teams. That's not usually the case. Then you're going to have some products that have 1 team, and you have some products that have three teams. The problem, in addition to the redundancy of work being done, so you could imagine that each of these products is building log in it. Each of these products was building a transactional processing engine. That a system like this, where the products and the backlogs, the product owners and the backlogs and the teams are, you know, in a flow, or the requirements are coming down from the product and being executed by specific teams, it's very difficult, very cumbersome for the organization to adjust enterprise priority. So, for instance, let's just assume that one of these products is in a very competitive space, and a competitor comes up with a brand new way of doing things, and in that product space, and it's going to cost them a lot of market share, and they need to adjust the capacity of the people that work for that team. They need to grow, have more teams. So you just go out and hire teams, but that takes some time. That's hard to do. And so usually what organizations try to do is they'll take 1 or more teams from other products and transfer them to this product. Well, there's a ramp up time. There's people used to work in this other organization, and now they're thrust into this new organization. And then there's the products that are losing capabilities. They've lost even some of their team members. They've lost entire teams. So these tend to be very coarse dials in controlling the flow of business value out through an enterprise. And it tends to cause a lot of problems and tends to not respond well enough. So faced with this problem at a very large company in the UK, Colin and his team decided to disconnect the backlogs that were created by the product owners from the teams that actually did the work. They said, okay, you still exist, you all, we're still product development teams, but you don't any longer report directly to or get your work directly from any one particular product. And so what they did is they created another level. Now, like Boss and Greg say, this scaled Scrum is still Scrum. And I don't think this changes Scrum enough to say that it's not Scrum anymore, because what you're really trying to do is trying to leverage the abilities, the capabilities, the availability of the individuals and the teams in such a way that you can solve the problem of shared code, that you can apply resources, teams to problems as they come up, that you can ensure that enterprise architecture is sound, as robust as it needs to be, and changes appropriately to meet new needs. So they created this layer, this committee. This was very senior people. The business still had a major voice. So even though the business voice comes through the product owner, this was people representing the enterprise as a whole. There was architectural leadership there that made sure that the architecture in the portfolio suite was really dealing with everything that needed to be done. And then the engineering leaders were also involved in this layer to make sure that modules could be reused in other settings, and then facilitated the discussion between products about what those shared modules should look like, and about the scheduling of dependent code and things like that. So this architectural leadership team would bring the requirements in from the backlogs from each of the products as they were still being produced, still being created. So each product owner still had a product, still was trying to market that product, and was still dealing with their marketplace or their customer base to come up with the features that they needed in their product. These stories or these features were then delivered to this architectural engineering business layer, and they were turned into streams of work that were allocated to the various teams. Oh, I've got an arrow that doesn't point to a team. Oh, you get the idea. Oh, that one's off too. Okay, here we go. We'll get them all in there. So let's assume every team's got a stream of work that it's going to get. Now, this allows you to do a couple of interesting things. First of all, you could semi-specialize these teams. You could have it so that teams tended to work on the same things. You wouldn't want to do this exclusively. You absolutely would not want to have teams that only built, a particular component, because your team members are going to get bored. You need to challenge your team members. You need to keep your people fresh and happy and excited about their work. But that semi-specialization allowed them to actually build more things in a particular area quicker. But the other big advantage is that because the Engineering Business Architectural Leadership Committee was creating these streams that ended up being like a backlog, they weren't for any one particular product, and they were by definition creating products or components, if you will, features that potentially could be used by multiple products. And moreover, if a particular product had bigger needs that the marketplace was pushing, you could really focus more of the teams to actually deal with the issues that a particular product is having. That was a brilliant definition of how really big projects could be scaled. If you ever get a chance to see Colin at a conference, ask him about it. I'm sure he'd share even more with you about it.